Thank you, and welcome back to the second half of our fifth Alumni Forum here at the International Center for Studies in Creativity in Buffalo State College. This forum, a creative journey of expression, self-discovery, growing others, and it's a forum on aesthetics and creativity in the personal realm. And today we have Brian Nesline, Hedra Lunkin, Colleen Barts, and Craig Kosinski with us. And thank you. Thanks for coming back. And we'll start off with a little bit more of a future focus, kind of a present and future focus. And these are just conversation starters. So we're looking at, if you think about how creativity might strengthen society or your profession, what are some things that you'd like to see happen? What would you like to see happen in the future? So we'll open it to whomever might wish to start us off.
Well, I can see in my profession, I guess, the museum world, that they're really starting to head towards what I'd say a good place. Things are becoming much more interactive. Computers are being used more, which can be good and bad. I mean, I'm more for just stripped down exhibits if they're interactive. Let them play with the raw materials, and don't enhance it electronically, because there's a lot of maintenance issues there. But that's another thing. But museums themselves are really reaching out to society and want to become change agents for society, which is a good thing because people need to have something to help them change. Mm.
And if students wanted to, and looking at our students at our program, if they were interested in that kind of a profession, what would you tell them?
How to get into it? Well, I went on for a second master's degree because it's really true what Sid and Ruth had been saying about creativity is that it's a process. You need to apply content to it. So you just can't really go out and be creative unless you're reflecting some other sort of content into that creativity. If you're a teacher and your thing is the process of teaching and you're using creativity as the content for teaching it. But if you're an artist, you've got the creativity, but you have to be drawing from a lot of background in order to process that content through the different aspects that we've learned in creative studies and the different techniques. My favorite technique, by the way, are forced relationships. But favorite techniques, forced relationships. Anybody else? No.
Oh yeah, Kelly.
Name that.
So to get into the museum field, I got a degree in arts management, and I was preparing myself to, become a curator. And basically, I am a curator where I am. I'm an in-house curator for the exhibit fabricator. I interface with curators, and that's been really rewarding because they're the people that create the content for the museum. And to work with them on that level and bringing out their objects, to help them tell the story is quite rewarding.
It's funny because you talk about getting your degree in creativity and then going and looking at the expertise within your domain. Yeah. Brian talks about coming back to get the his expertise in his field and got hooked on creativity. So it's interesting the two different paths towards the same kind of marriage between the imagination and the knowledge base within your domain. Interesting, and that's Ruth's formula.
Yeah.
The creativity is a function of knowledge, imagination, and evaluation, I believe. Is that right, everybody?
Motivated by attitude.
And yes, it's a function of attitude. That's right. It's the attitude towards. Very good.
Well, I'll go next because I just want to talk about
Sure.
future. I think you've mentioned, a couple of you actually said it. You said open to possibilities, and you talked about deferring judgment and being open to things. This program is unique in the fact that rather than teaching you something specific, it is teaching you the process, and it is teaching you many, many tools. I mean, the tools are unbelievable, and you can make up your own after a while. I mean, when I used to do, I did a lot of work with Blair Miller, and he used to say to me after a while, look, you can put it together yourself. You can make your own figures, your own activities, your own interactive activities. But what the program does here for you, and what I'd love to see is that bring this out, when we first started, it wasn't in a lot of the school systems. We had a lot of teachers coming here, and it's, thank God, it's in the school systems now. They teach creativity. In the school systems, I know most companies know how to do brainstorming. They might not quite do it the way we do it, but they do know how to look for more ideas than one or two ideas. So I think that's a wonderful thing. I can't thank Sid Parnes and Ruth Noller enough for starting this whole thing and for getting us where we are, and for the father before him, I can't think of his name.
Alex Osborne.
Alex Osborne. I mean, if you haven't read Alex's book, read it, because it's all about deferring judgment in a time when there was different judgment. These are so basic, and if we could learn this as a world society, if we could do this in the world today, you're living in a time that is so exciting now to think who the President of the United States is, whether you're Democrat or Republican, I don't care. What's happened in the world now, what's going on in the world all over it, if we could learn to defer judgment, to accept other people, to think about things differently than the way we're thinking about it, that maybe the narrow way we think about it isn't right, that there's other ways of doing things. If we can be open to these things, we can change the world. If we can teach the young people, she's teaching a young 6th grade, if we can teach these people to be open to new ideas and not just the right way. I was thinking of the purple crayon. You know, you have to draw a purple flower, a purple crayon, but it doesn't matter what color you draw the flowers, if you can have all different colored flowers. This is the most important thing that you're going to learn in this program. It's the kind of thing that when I said to you before about my grandchildren, I want them to know I'm eccentric. I want them to know I'm different. I want them to know that I do things differently, because I want them to feel free to do it too. And if you can pass this down to your generations, to your friends and your family and the people senior to you and younger to you and the companies that you work in, we could have a better world to live in. We could learn how to do things better. So I think the future of the world could depend a lot on getting this creativity spread out even more than it is. We're in all the countries of the world. If you go to SIPSI, you'll see many, 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 many countries represented. But we need more, and we need more work. So
I'm going to tag on her, because as an educator and being in the school systems, but even in life in general, it's so very easy to focus on the negative, and it's so very easy to sit there and say, well, I'm just not good at math. I'm just not good at drawing. I can't do it. It's so easy to just shut it down. And once you shut it down and once you tell yourself you can't, you're absolutely right. You're not going to be able to do whatever it is you're telling yourself you can't. And I have a big sign in my classroom, and it's a big "I can't" with a big line going through, a big red line. And I tell my students, it's not that you can't. It's, the thing is, I'll try. I'll at least try. And the kids walk away, and they come over, and they'll say, I can't do this, and they'll hand me a blank piece of paper, and I said, you got to give me a try. Just give me one try before I'm going to show you. But you give me a try, and then they'll walk away, and they'll give that try, and then they'll come back, and they'll say, all right, and I'm like, that's great. Look, you did this right, and you did this right, and you did this right, and let's be positive about this. What was done well? Where did you go? Where do we go from here? We got all this, now we have to add this and this and this. What else can we change? And then they go back, and they're excited now because they got something right. But it's that whole thing of the feeling that you can't get it wrong once. You can't even make mistakes. And I love making mistakes. And the mistake quoting that I learned about, I tell the kids, and they laugh at me now. It's like, I make mistakes all the time. I could have 10 mistakes today, and I'll write it on the board. And the kids will go up to the board and mark my mistakes. Oh, you said that wrong. Oh, you wrote that wrong. And I'm like, good. That's another one. Put it up there. It's okay. And we have to be allowed to make mistakes, because that's how we learn, that's how we change, and that's how we grow. And what I love to see in the classrooms now is the fact that in the school where I'm at right now, they're actually identifying that the kids are learning at different paces. They're learning in different ways. And once they acknowledge that this kid learns visually, and this kid learns orally, and this kid learns by doing, and this kid, then the teachers are learning, okay, I'm going to teach it X, Y, and Z ways, and how am I going to teach these? And they're applying that in the classrooms now, and it's becoming a builder in the classrooms. So in a positive way, creativity is getting there. It's starting to build again. For me personally, I would hope that the arts, and when I say arts, I mean music, art, and everything, gets built upon in the schools, because that's the foundation of education from way back when. And it's so easy in this tough economy to say, let's start slashing it all. Let's just start getting rid of all the stuff we don't need. And they put the labels on what's actually needed, and what's truly needed is to get the kids to think and to be creative and to go outside those boxes that they're stuck in all day by reading that book and applying the answer to the test. Read the book, apply the answer to the test. And they don't get that formula anymore of problem solving, and they don't get to really start to sink their fingers into the Play-Doh and the mud or whatever it is and create and to think and invent and become intuitive like that. And I want to see more of that. And I'm just hoping that the way things are going, that's not going to happen, because that's not what we need. And you could see it when you have someone like the president that we have, who's sitting there saying, well, let's think about this. Let's be open about this. Let's look at where we do need to cut and and I'm really hoping that over the process that's going to take place, it's not going to slash the system, but grow the system. I'm hopeful for the education system, but it'll be interesting to see what happens over time now.
Yeah, it's quite a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
That, there's all this competition to get better, but in having this competition, the kids are freezing up, and while creativity is needed to be able to get out there with the finger paints and the Play-Doh, they're likely to feel that they're being marked on that also.
Right.
So they just have to have free playtime and let them go wild, do what they need to in that play,
Yeah, that whole idea that deep thinking requires play and curiosity as
does.
well as much of the domain expertise.
The one thing I was thinking about while you guys were sharing is that I too am there with what y'all are saying as far as teaching creativity to people who don't value it or who don't think that it's anything real or worthwhile. And what better than with children, because they really haven't formulated any what's real and worthwhile ideas yet. They aren't going to necessarily say that creativity is worthless because they haven't really lived long enough to form that opinion or that bias or something. The thing that I was thinking about was that when I think about my own experience, when I was a kid, and just how it really is that we teach, that this is a microphone, this is a cup, We teach that this is something and this is something else, and they are not the same and they are separate. We have to teach that a square is a square and a circle is a circle so that people can learn to recognize the material objects around them and be able to function in this world. But at a certain point, it seems to me that there's a dependency on this being a microphone and this being a cup and this is always going to be a circle, and we start to get addicted, I think, to, I have to know what everything is around me, and I have to, and I have to know that it's different from everything else. Each thing has its one right behavior. Each thing has its one right answer. And when you give me this test with these math questions, if I get, this has one right answer, and you're training me that everything has one right answer. And so when I get it wrong and I get punished for it, I have to get that one right answer, and so you train me more to learn to look for one right answer. And I think that that's part of the problem. I get it that we have to learn how to find one right answer, but we also have to learn how to abandon that at a certain stage and how to teach them how to abandon it without calling it a negative thing. How can I abandon the cup and still be able to drink out of it? And believe me, I've abandoned this cup. It's gone, but I still can use it. I can still use it. The other thing I wanted to say about this is that one thing I thought about was if they had taught me, they could have taught me everything they wanted to in social studies and math and English, all in one project. For example, if, let's say that the project was to build a model rocket, then they could have worked math in there and worked, even physics in there. They could have worked language in there in some way. They could have worked social studies and history in there. They could have taught me the things they wanted me to learn by making the building of that model rocket the focus. So in the end, when I had that one answer, which was the model rocket, I wouldn't really have that. I would be focused on the little bit of history I learned, the little bit of English I learned, the little bit of math I learned, and I would have also left knowing that things aren't always what they seem, that they contain more than just that one thing that I'm looking at. A lot of times when I speak like this, I'm not sure if I'm really getting across, my points. I don't know if this is clear. It's another danger of living in the world of creativity is you don't really know.
I
You
feel
go
that
into
way too
space.
sometimes.
I mean,
That's where we all come together.
yeah. But I definitely think it's because of the way that teaching happens that we're so dependent on this is this and not that as from an early age, and that we don't know how to abandon that and feel safe in abandoning it, without being called crazy. Like, you can't abandon that or you're nuts, So, I don't know. Anybody have any comments or thoughts about that?
I had a conversation with my brother-in-law and sister-in-law once. It was a very positive conversation, and they were discussing the grades, and their son wasn't doing well in art class. And they didn't think it was fair that their son got a grade in art because it was bringing down his grade point average. And they said, so he shouldn't be graded for that. And I said, my daughter is not doing well in science class, so I don't think she should get a grade in that class. And it's like, you can't pick and choose because what you find important is important and what somebody else finds important. You have to, they come to an agreement that these things are important. These things are important in education, all of them. That's why you go to college and you get a well-rounded degree, a bachelor's degree. You take art courses even in college. There's a reason for it. The same way you point out the microphone and I look at it and I say, no, I see plastic tubing and wire, and I look at it totally different, but that's okay. And it's that acceptance again that we go back to that, and I think that's great that that's a microphone, but I think it's cool because I can make it into something else.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, one of the things that happened with me when I went back to the book and I realized that my thing is based on life doesn't get better, it gets different. Because when I graduated the program and I didn't know what was going on and my husband passed away, somebody said to me, oh, it'll get better. And I thought to myself, how can it get better? I had a great life. But if I open myself to possibilities and I don't use the same criteria and I can use different criteria, I can make my life anything I want it to be. I had new criteria, and it got different, and the different can be phenomenal, even more fantastic than before. But to make something better than it was before, you've got to keep doing it the same way and judging it the same way. And if we keep judging things, we're not going to move. Not going to move at all.